our office is ran by a separately elected official, our state auditor, Pat McCarthy, who's currently starting her third term in office. And Pat has been very transparent in her values as well as her goals for conducting audits. We've shared 3 items on the slide in front of you that we'd like to touch on. But number 1, we hope that the audit process is viewed as a tool for both members of the governing body, district management, and the citizens in your community. Our number 1 goal here is to increase trust in government operations. And so the audit process is a good, unique way to come in and take a look at the district's compliance in a number of areas, as well as your general safeguarding of public dollars, and report back to you on how everything is working. We also are independent to the district's operations, so we have the unique responsibility of conducting audits across the state for all school districts. It allows us the opportunity to take a look at what we can see statewide and utilize that information to make sure that we're sharing that with the district and also reporting those results directly on our website so that your public has access to those audit results. But lastly, we recognize that audits do sometimes result in audit recommendations. So please note that we do take great care to really take a look at any recommendations that are coming out of the audit process and make sure that they are really constructed in a way that's hopefully helpful to the district in improving your efficiency and effectiveness of audits and your operations. Before we jump into the specific results of the district's audits, I do want to touch on this is the second year that we are coming out to the district, and statewide, our office is seeing many school districts navigate the changing times that everybody's kind of going through at this moment. Navigating through COVID, coming out of COVID, working through changes in federal funding, working through changes in how apportionment dollars flow through the state has really impacted districts across our state differently. And we are seeing a number of districts work through those challenges. In the prior audit, we did share recommendations about Marysville School District, specifically your district's efforts to work through financial challenges. And we are going to be touching on those efforts tonight. And we encourage you to ask any questions that you might have at the end of our presentation. We'll do our best to kind of streamline our information to you so that we can stay on track with our time. But we will have an opportunity for questions at the end. So to start with the first of 3 audits that we conducted, I'm going to turn it over to Kirk Edboyce.
Great, thank you, Christina. All right, so I'm going to start speaking to the financial and federal audit results. So in your packet on the right-hand side, there's that first audit report that has a lot of information I'll be going over here. But we have a mix of some, good positive things to talk about, and then also some things we'd like to bring to your attention so you can work with district management and staff just to work on a few things going forward. So first, a few positive things. We performed a financial statement audit and reviewed your financial statements with the ultimate objective of giving an opinion on the financial statements. And we are pleased to announce that we are able to give a good, clean, unmodified opinion on your financial statements that we reviewed. That's the opinion, of course, you want to receive and that you, that all your external users want to see as well. To be a little bit confusing, we also issued an adverse opinion in accordance with US GAAP accounting. The reason why is because there's 2 different methods of financial statement reporting the district can do. You can either create your financial statements using the school district accounting manual, which is the way that about probably 291, I think, of the 295 school districts in Washington state prepare their statements, which is the way Marysville does it. Or you can prepare your statements in accordance with the US GAAP. And really only about, I think, 4 districts in the state now prepare their statements with US GAAP. So the statements you did prepare, again, you get that clean, unmodified opinion. The statements you didn't prepare because you weren't required to, we have to give an adverse opinion on those statements because obviously they weren't prepared. Another big thing is that we do perform our audits in accordance with US government auditing standards. And that would require us to report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls if we identified them. So more good news is we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in controls that we have to include in the report, nor do we identify any kind of non-compliance with state laws, grant agreements, or anything like that we have to report in your financial statement report. So as far as the financial statements and how they were prepared, no issues. We're very pleased to report no significant issues at all. Now, in your report, though, we do have one issue we bring to your attention. It's related to the financial condition of the district. So we do have what we call a finding in that report, where we do outline the challenges the district has faced over the past couple years with its financial condition. So a lot of that we talked about last year when we had our exit conference meeting. It continues over into this year as well. So we updated this finding as to what has gone on over the last year, what steps the district has taken, the interfund loans that have been taken by the district, apportionment advances that were taken during the year, and as well as some other steps as well. So we outline, where the district is at. We considered a few different types of ratios. We're looking at revenues versus expenditures, how much money you have left in the general fund, things like that. So in that report, we do include a few tables that show the general fund ending balances by year and how it's been decreasing over the past few years, and similarly, how it's been decreasing up into the current school year as well. And then also we include in that report another table that talks about the revenues and expenditures and how we've seen expenditures exceed revenues over the past few years. So that information is included in the finding. We also provided a chance for the district to respond to the finding. So that's the spot where the district did provide a response and basically talked about the steps that you're taking to improve financial condition going forward. So that information is all in there. One thing we did want to bring to your attention as we talk about this, we do get asked by elected officials, management, and the public from time to time, is my district the only one, facing this? Maybe you might be curious, is Marysville the only one in the state, that's dealing with these types of situations? So we just wanted to bring this to your attention. Our office has a tool. It's called the Financial Intelligence Tool. It's online. Go to our website, and basically we collect a lot of data. We get all financial information for every government in Washington state. And starting last year for school district, we started publishing all that good information that people want to know, like what's your general fund revenues, what's your general fund expenditures, fund balance, different types of your capital projects fund expenditures and revenues and whatnot. It's all there where you as electeds or people within management or even citizens can go and see exactly how our school districts doing in Washington state, or how is my individual school district doing in Washington state here. So as far as, is Marysville by themselves in this situation or not? The answer is no. So we are statewide. We're looking at this across the state. And when we look at our different ratios and we look at things like considering, how our school districts doing across the state, we're seeing warning signs with a lot of school districts. As you can see up on the chart there, there's 185 different, we call them like cautionary, concerning marks. So that might be expenditures exceeding revenues for a number of years, or fund balance that we consider to be fairly low, lower than what we would like to see. So this is something that we're seeing statewide across a lot of different school districts. This is just the high level chart, but if you're curious, you can again go to this Financial Intelligence Tool website. You can see information for every school district in Washington state, drilling down to essentially all the information you might be curious about. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Other things I want to talk about with the financial statement audit, just as we kind of wrap up the financial statement piece. We didn't identify any material misstatements when we were doing our review. We did identify a few small misstatements. A lot of those misstatements were corrected by management, and so they corrected and updated the financial statements for publishing. There are a few uncorrected misstatements that we are really just trivial items that remained uncorrected and that staff can fix going forward. We did provide a list of those uncorrected misstatements at the conclusion of your exit agenda, which is on the right or left-hand side of your packet that we passed out. So if you want to see those, you could take a peek at those, but we agree with management that they don't affect the readability of the statements. Another thing we considered, because we are required to when we were looking at your financial statements, is the risk of management override of controls. So we do some procedures to determine if there's a risk of, if there was someone overriding your established internal controls, would that be detected timely? So we do some procedures to follow up on that risk, and we're pleased to report we didn't identify any significant issues we have to bring to your attention for that risk. So that's the financial statement audit. The next audit we performed is what we call federal grant compliance audit. And so that's where we look at all the federal expenditures received by and spent by the school districts for the year. And we have to look at certain programs. The federal government will give the guidelines on telling us what programs we need to look at in any given year. And so again, similar to the financial statement audit, the ultimate opinion here, or the ultimate objective is to give an opinion on those federal programs. So we're pleased to report that of all the programs we looked at, we're giving clean, unmodified opinions on those programs. And also similar to government audit, because we do those audits in accordance with government auditing standards, we do look at the internal controls too. So how those programs are administered and what kind of oversights over those programs. We did not identify any significant deficiencies in internal controls, but there was one program of the three where we did identify an issue that we determined to be a material weakness, and it also led to material noncompliance as well. So we'll go over that in just a second. But before we do, I did want to show the different programs we did audit this year. So one of the programs was a child nutrition cluster. This is very much reoccurring program for the district. It's been around for a really long time, and typically we audit this program about every 2 to 3 years. But this is where a bulk of our review went this year, about a little over $4 million of expenditures from the district. The other two programs we looked at were the COVID grants that were received by the district. These are going away really at the end of last year, so we wanted to really take a look at these just because this was really the last year of them. And so in total, we audited a little over 40% of the total federal expenditures for the district here for this last year. So the issue we identified was related to the one of those COVID-19 grants. It was the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. And really what it comes down to is the district charged employees time or salaries and benefits to this program. I think it was 18 employees in total. And when you do that, you are required by the feds to have some sort of way to record the time spent on that to make sure that the employees were working on the federal program and they were allowed to do so. So OSPI has basically set a standard of here's what you need to do to document that time. And so you're doing these monthly time and effort sheets, or you're doing semi-annual certifications. What we found is that beginning of the school year, the district originally had 15 employees that were set to charge to this program. So they were keeping timesheets and making sure those timesheets were kept for 15 of those employees. But at the end of the school year, towards the end, 3 more employees were added to start charging this federal program. And it just kind of got missed during everything that was going on to go back and make sure that those timesheets were being kept by those 3 employees who were charging this program. So because of that, it was 3 of 18 employees, and based on the amount that was charged, unfortunately, it entered into that material side. So it ended up being that material weakness that led to material noncompliance. Similar here, the district, this is published in our report as a finding, and the district did have a chance to respond and has a good response in this finding for the public to see. So that's really and then I guess one other big piece to go along with that as well. We did notice another issue with the federal reporting as well. The district was required to prepare what we call a schedule of expenditures of federal awards. It's a schedule that lists all the different expenditures of federal money that you get for the year. When we were performing our procedures at the very beginning of the audit, we did notice that one program was underreported because the expenditures were recorded in the previous year as opposed to this current year. So when the expenditures were correctly reported on this schedule, it did cause a change where we needed to include this program as a major program in our federal audit. So what we do recommend going forward is, of course, just making sure that these schedules are prepared accurately, completely, and there's a review process in place to make sure, again, it's accurate and complete. So that is that management letter recommendation is in page 37 of your exit packet if you'd like to take a peek at that in more detail. But with that, that's really what we had for the financial federal audit report. I'll pass it off to Courtney and she can talk about the accountability audit and then we can have time for questions.
Right. So for the accountability audit, it is for the same period that our financial and federal compliance report is reported under. So it's September 1st, 23 through August 31st, 24. And the goal of our accountability audit is really to take a look at what you're required to comply with, whether that be laws, regulations, contract requirements, your own policies and procedures. It's really just making sure that you have processes and controls in place to make sure that you are complying with those items. And so in the process of going through it, we don't issue an opinion, but we do issue the results. And what you're seeing on the screen, what you see in the packet is the report that we'll actually be issuing. So you'll notice in that blue box, as a overall, we felt that there was compliance with the exception of one item that we did also report a finding, which I'll go over in just a minute. But it was one of the many areas that we took a look at. So speaking to that more specifically, in the process that we go through for an accountability audit, there's a lot happening at your district. We don't have the capacity, nor do you want us to sit here and audit year round because there's just so much going on. So we do a risk-based approach in our planning procedures. We go through a process of understanding, what's been happening. We look at your minutes. We have conversations with you and with your staff to just get an understanding of what's happened. And so what you're seeing in the report, what you're seeing in our presentation is the areas that we focused on this year. So the first one being accounts payable, that is a large majority of where your funds are going. So there's a lot to be paid for a variety of different ways, whether that be your general disbursements, credit cards, travel expenditures, electronic funds transfers, employee reimbursement. There's a lot of ways that payments can be made. And so in looking at that, we're looking at, is it supported? Is it properly approved? Is it being monitored? And we didn't identify any concerns in this area. So great job to the district. We also looked at treasury activities, specifically focusing on your banking activity and how those funds, we pulled some transactions from your banking activity to see, again, is it supported? Is it allowable? Is it for appropriate uses? And again, we didn't identify any concerns in that area as well. There are some requirements statewide for all school districts that legislature requires us to take a look at each year. The first is the use of restricted funds. Specifically, we have to look at the use of those funds related to professional learning and then local revenue for enrichment activities and donations with specific purpose. So we did not identify concerns in that area. The area that we did identify, the finding, which we'll talk about in just a moment, is related to the compliance with supplemental contracts for enrichment activities. So I'll speak more to that in just a moment. We are also responsible for taking a look at your apportionment, how that funding is being utilized to make sure that it is being received and is being used correctly, or is received, excuse me, based on the requirements that are laid out for it. And so we did have our schools team come in and do a you will see on page 47 item in your packet that there is a memo that we are required to send to OSPI letting you know if what we found the results. That was very clean. So you'll see that information is what will be going to them. And then finally, for all local governments across Washington state, we always look at your open public meetings just in the process in our planning procedures to make sure that you're in compliance with those requirements related to the open public meetings. So the finding that I mentioned, it has to do with supplemental contracts. So what this is, this is not in relation to your regular contracts with your teachers, but for any type of payments and any contracts that you're entering into for supplemental activities, enrichment activities. This can be coaching, extracurricular activities. it's required that you have a contract in place with those teachers and whoever is providing these enrichment activities that lays out the requirements. It lays out how much is being paid. It's the requirements and expectations of those teachers. And so during the 23-24 school year, about $7 million was paid in these types of enrichment contracts, these additional contracts. And that was there was about approximately 1,700 contracts that amounted to those types of payments. Those contracts should be created and signed and in place prior to any payments being made for these types of contracts. And during our review, we took a look and we found about 1,600 of those 17 contracts had not been put into place and signed, and that was laying out those requirements prior to those activities taking place. And so really our recommendation is to make sure that there is a process in place to ensure that those contracts are entered into appropriately and that everybody has a clear understanding of what is expected through those contracts prior to any payments being made. So as you go into your next school year, making sure that that is updated. So that is the remainder of our reports, all the different reports that we're going to be issuing. So as we move forward, the report is expected, it's set to be published tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We do encourage, if you have not already done so, to sign up for our subscription service so that you can receive a copy of that report once it's been released, as well as information for how you can find it on our website should you need that as well. We do also send out a survey. We do appreciate any feedback, good or bad. Our goal is really to make sure that the audit process runs as smoothly as possible. So feel free to share that survey with anybody that would like to provide feedback to us. We do encourage that as well. Just a couple of closing remarks. At the beginning of our audit, during our entrance conference, as well as in the engagement letter that we provided, we shared the cost of our audit, and we are pleased to report that we are staying within those costs. Our next audit is scheduled for early 2026, about the same time. We usually start sometime in January. It's the same type of audit. It's an accountability, financial statement, and federal compliance audit. We have included the estimated cost of that audit in your packet. It's on page 2 for budgeting purposes. And then lastly, we understand the effort that it is to undertake an audit and go through the audit process with us. So we do want to say thank you to your staff for all of the effort that they have made to provide the information to us, to make the audit run as smoothly as possible so that we can make sure that we complete this audit in time to meet all the required deadlines that are related to this audit. So we want to say thank you to Susan and Monica and Dan for all of their effort in working with us. They were great to work with, and everything ran very smoothly and very timely. So thank you to them. And so with that, are there any questions for us today?
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions from the board?
I guess I have a question. Is there anything you're recommending that the board of directors monitor on a regular basis, monthly or whatever, with regard to the financial statements?
Yeah, it really is as whatever the board of directors would like. A lot of times, as far as like the financial statements themselves, they delegate that to like the executive director of finance or something like that to really run the day-to-day, monitoring of those financial statements. And then as far as the board goes, usually boards and electeds, you just see like the high level because they're more in the operations side. You want to be seeing our expenditures exceeding revenues or revenues exceeding expenditures. You want to be knowing more for like that strategy of if you're seeing issues coming up, what to be, adjusting course going forward. So as far as like the financial statement process and things like that, having a good understanding of internal controls and like what those internal controls are within the department, and just kind of knowing like who's in charge of what, that's usually a good idea. And just having an idea of making sure there's no kind of lapse or anything like that might be in your departments. So,
But there's nothing in particular that you're saying
Mhm.
we should be paying attention to apart from the general.
Usually for like the financial statement preparation side of it and like keeping your GL up to date and things like that. Like I said, usually that's more kept to like more finance department side. Not so much, we don't see the board members approving journal entries or things like that typically getting into that level. But again, what we like to see at least is knowing, the electeds to know kind of what are the established internal controls within my department. So we do actually have a really good guide too on our website that actually talks about that. It's Elected's Guide to Preventing Fraud and Potential other risks. So that's definitely something I would be happy to send your way if you're interested in that. Because we do get asked that question a lot is, maybe a newly elected official wants to know what is my role in preventing fraud at my government, or what is my role at, you know, what should I be involved with the financial activities? So we do actually have a really good guide about that. If you want me to send that to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
I wasn't sure if we were automatically on or we had to press our button this time. So I had a couple of questions about how often the auditor's office looks at kind of current year finances. Is that consistent across all districts or just certain districts?
I'll just keep this thing on, I think. Yes, we do actually look at up to current as well. Our audit scope was last year, but we do want to know what's happening up to current. So in our current finding, we do have a table that explains like the different, how things have been going. But I think below one of the tables, we do talk about the general fund balance and up through March 2025, because that was the data that was available to us. So, yeah, we do consider what's going on up to present. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And then my next question is on the fit tool, which I think when we were on our exit call, first of all, I love kind of the data and the graphic representation and the ability to kind of at a glance kind of look across the board.
Mhm.
I find that interesting. But for Marysville, will we see data reported as of the end of August 2024?
Yeah, it's going to be for your reported data from your financial statements. So it would be through the end of 2024, and then you wouldn't see any more updated information until it'd be probably like about January or February, I think, of each year would get the next year. So, yeah. And I guess one other little small thing with the Fit tool, it is a brand new thing for school districts. It's only been live for about a year or so. So I know that our group really wants all feedback. So if there's certain things that you're looking for that you find especially helpful or would like to see a change or like a, reformatting, they're very open to tweaks and things like that. So if you do have like requests of, how it would be even better, I think Christina or Courtney would be great people to reach out to, and then they can forward that information on if there's not a link on the Fit tool already, so you can do that. So.
I appreciate that. I think
Yeah.
one of the things I'm thinking about is the progress that we've made this year, where if someone from the general public might look at that and see data from 2024, which looks pretty concerning. It is, not that it's not, but that there's been progress made this year towards restoring financial stability. Anyway, so I appreciate that there's maybe an opportunity for some dialogue there, maybe for the district to maybe make a statement about current year progress.
Yeah.
And then with respect to the contracts piece and just kind of the documentation. So my understanding is that that we need to have some type of hearing. Is that correct?
Courtney might know.
Yes, sorry. Yes, there is a requirement. It's included in the finding in the recommendation. Excuse me, I'm trying to flip to it, but basically, yes, you are required to have a public hearing within 30 days of the issuance of our report, which would be tomorrow, per state law. So yeah, that is included in there as well.
Okay, thank you.
I guess just more of a comment up. I guess I'll just hold the button. More of a comment about ensuring that we get reports on how we're updating our internal controls, and that seems like a reoccurring theme in these conclusions. So just really want to make sure that as a board and as recommended, that we are well aware of what those are.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I know, regardless of what you audit next year, you will still be checking on the status of the corrective actions that we implement for the findings this year. I'm curious, and I don't know if I missed it, but was it reported during this exit audit, the status of the corrective actions from last year's audit? Did I just miss that?
No, that is in the report as
Okay.
well.
Yep.
So that is on page
Here.
18 and 19, or it starts on page 18 and goes through page 20 with their status of prior year. And then in addition to that, on page 33 and 34, there is also the corrective action plan that the district plans to take based on the findings that were reported in your financial and federal audit report.
Okay, thank you very much for
Mhm.
pointing that out. Any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you very much for coming out and giving a report on the audit. Really appreciate the opportunity to be able to see for the community to be able to see what's going on behind the scenes here at MSD. And I don't know if you said that, did we already come up with a date for the audit for next year? I know we talked about the cost, but
It's typically starting in like January, February, early next year. It's
okay.
usually when we start.
If the board doesn't have anything else, I don't have anything else, and thank you again very much.
Thank you all.
All right, we're gonna jump right into early childhood education and assistance program presentation.
Is it on? There we go. Good evening, Dr. Rumba, Board of Directors. Aline, Greg, and I are here this evening to share an early learning plan to continue to support our kindergarten readiness. Thank you. Hello, thank you for hearing us out this evening on our presentation. We do have a plan for us to unite our two campuses. So the Early Learning Center is a special education program as well as ECAP. And we have two campuses. So we have ECAP program at the main campus, which is just down the road. And we also have 3 classrooms at the MP High School. And so our thought is to move our 3 ECAP classrooms at MP over to our main campus. We do have some land that's adjacent to the main campus that is a site for us to put portables. And right now with the consolidation process, the school's consolidation process, it is really not part of that plan, but the consolidation process really provides us an opportunity to use existing portables to move the classrooms over. And so do want to go into the money part of this because right now that's kind of where our heads are, is being fiscally responsible. So I have Greg Dennis here. He has been helping us with some of the cost estimates. And actually, we've got some late breaking news on our proposal. The total cost has gone up, but I'll get into those particulars when I hand it over to Greg. But our ECAP budget, which is a separate budget, it's a grant funded through Snohomish County ECAP. Is paying for this. And we have accounted for the loss of our ARPA funds because this year is our last year of that money. And we are being able to absorb the loss of that money with some planned reduction in staff. And ECAP is proposing a slight increase in the amount they pay for their per student allocations. We do have some rollover funds that has existed for the last couple years. Our contract allows us to carry over 10% of our budget each year. So by being fiscally responsible, our program has been able to create this nest egg of $333,000. What we don't know is how long we'll have to roll over monies, because each year, as you know, as we go into the future, the state, which is the true allocations of the funds, is running right short on funds. And so we're kind of seeing that money is use it or lose it, because every year we don't know how much money we're actually going to be able to roll over. So this is kind of an opportunity for us, and it may be opportunity with the portables that the district happens to have, that we have this amount of money to be able to spend to benefit our program. So when we started talking about this, this was our projected cost estimates for all of the amounts that we would need to move portables. So we are proposing to move 3 portables, supply them with ramps, move the playground that exists on the MP campus, that's preschool appropriate. We would also need to do some work with the utilities, which also includes putting in bathroom facilities in the portables and redoing the fencing. But I'm going to turn this over to Greg because he's been working on these estimates, because of course, while we're looking at this, we want to make sure that we have accurate numbers.
Put it back up to Lori's side. So we have 3 portables at Pinewood Elementary. You remember last year we were going to move those over to 10th Street with the ICAP moving to 1 location. Even with adding 6th grade at Pinewood, they're still going to have a surplus number of portables. So that's the location that we're going to pull the portables from. One of the 3 already has one of the what's called a welcome ramp, the aluminum ramps, the ADA approved ramps is already on there. The line item for the 2 ramps there that you see, or the line item you see there is for the 2 ramps for the other 2 portables. Moving costs of a playground. So when we put this ECAP program out at Marysville Pilchuck 2-3 years ago, we installed a new playground at that same time. So they had their own fenced in area out there. We're looking at the cost of moving that playground over to this facility because by adding those extra 3 classrooms of kids, they'll potentially need more playground structures as well, although there are 2 existing playground structures over there right now, one covered under a covered area and one outdoors. And then we would, like Aline mentioned with utilities, obviously we'll have to add electrical to our portables, but we'll also have to, because the program requires that they each have a toilet and hand washing station, we'll have to add those into each of the 3 portables that we move over there. So those are the items that are covered under the utilities. And then we have some fencing costs that we'll add to make sure that space is secured and tied to the existing campus. Right now, the space that Aline referenced is where the lumberyard used to lease that space from us out here. They've since vacated that, and that land is sitting there for us. That land has also been short platted to become part of the ECAP campus for that City of Marysville property exchange that we're aware of. This property that we're talking about is not included in that exchange. It stays with ECAP.
To account for any overages, we did want to have kind of a buffer of $40,000 to be able to buffer any, cost increases. But what we also wanted to be able to have as a plan B is the possibility of moving the playground in another year, because we do already have existing playgrounds. The other cost that we started to anticipate with Greg's input is, with 3 extra classrooms, we would need to look at increased costs in custodial, which is part of not these costs, but just the ongoing costs of running the program. And that is paid out of our ECAP budget with our indirect and in-kind services. That is a line item that ECAP pays to the district every year, and will be, part of that. Will help pay for, the increase of custodial costs. So there's quite a few advantages to this, and just so you know, this isn't a new idea that I'm bringing to the table. This is something that the former principal at ECAP has looked at for some time now. But when it was looked at before, it was adding the cost of buying 3 new portables, because there's always been a belief that it would be a better campus and a more secure campus to be all in one site. So like I said previously, the school consolidation process gave us this opportunity. In terms of instruction and teaching, the teachers do collaborate quite a bit. And when you're split between 2 campuses, you do decrease that ability for teachers to collaborate and, integrate their learning, especially when you're talking about 2 different programs. We've worked hard to integrate the programs because we do have kids in ECAP who also are served by special ed. And so what we have is special ed personnel going over to the MP campus to serve those kids, but then going back to the main campus. And this would allow for more inclusive services to have everyone on the same campus. The other thing that I wanted to let you know about is this will impact our families. And I did hold an open input session for parents to come to give me their ideas or their thoughts about the possibility of moving MP to the main campus. And really the response I got, and there weren't a whole lot of participation in this. I have to tell you, it's a pretty small sample size, but overall, the responses were positive. Parents felt more comfortable having preschool kids on a preschool campus. Anecdotally, when I first started on the program, kids who were going to MP, parents would ask me, is it safe? Is it secure? What about lockdowns? What about, high school stuff? And so I know there is a current of concern about having preschool kids on the high school campus. But in addition, we do have families who have kids in one campus and another, right? If they have kids in different grade levels, or maybe one is in the special ed program and one is ECAP. So this allows family to have one drop-off spot. What also has become very evident is the nature of our children in ECAP, or nature of children in school generally is they have needs. And right now we're trying to serve the needs, splitting staff between two different campuses. And there is a redundancy in our staffing by maintaining two different campuses. In addition, having everyone on one campus will give all of the kids full access to administration, HRA services, like I said, special ed services before. So it gives, all of the kids equitable access to all the different services that we offer on our ELC campus. The other thing is, and I think when we talk about bottom line and we talk about sustainability, because really budget is about being able to afford things not just this year, but in years to come. Because of the redundancy in staffing and the increased needs of our kids, I'm realizing that we need to be able to consolidate our costs, and truly having everyone on the same campus allows us to do that while still maintaining the amount of support that our kids need. In addition, transportation, we have bus service. They are now going to two different spots. And I know our program does have an impact on MP's facilities, and they could use the space for other things. And so while they've been very gracious hosts and neighbors, I do realize that it might be advantageous for MP for us to be on one campus as well. Things for us to consider. One of the feedback pieces that I got from parents was the MP campus does have CTE students volunteering, and part of their coursework is to go into the into the ECAP classrooms. And parent really appreciated that and felt like that really added a lot of value to our ECAP program as well as to the high schoolers. And so that is a continuing partnership that we hope will continue once we are all on the ELC campus. I do know that the CTE program does transport kids, from the other high schools to other schools. And so we're hoping that the ELC campus can be one of their stops. We also know that with the added classrooms going to our main campus, that could increase our traffic and congestion with pickup and drop off, as well as making sure that we are keeping up on our timeline for the portable moves, and making sure that everything is ready for when school starts next year. So with that, do we have any questions?
I got a couple. I guess the first couple are more like Greg questions. Is there a reason to move the portables from Pinewood where there could be a chance they might be needed in some time, as opposed to Liberty where we know they're not going to be used anymore?
We could, but we aren't using any of the portables at Pinewood right now. So when they had High Cap move in there, we added a bunch of portables 6 years ago. There's no need for that. They're still going to have them all vacant this year. And it's obviously a nice quick haul, and some of the Liberty portables are older or out in the middle of the playground. So it'd be a little more potentially cost prohibitive to move those as opposed to the ones we have there available at Pinewood.
Okay, good. Second question is using the three ports. I guess it's a general question. I don't know if anybody knows the answer. With the loss of the Everett Community College program, do we anticipate that going to have an impact on our enrollment, or is it too early to have any indication for that?
It is a little early. However, the ECAP County folks did contact our site and ask us to reach out to the families there to see if they're willing to enroll in our program. And so we do anticipate having some folks from that program move over, but we've just started that process. Yes.
Okay. Moving three portables in the area they're at, then if let's say we get a whole influx, is there still room available in the future to bring more portables to that area if we need to? I'm just curious. Yeah, Greg.
Are you talking for ECAP expansion?
Yeah, ECAP expansion.
Yeah, the property that we kept, with the city and that property exchange, the property we kept would allow us to double the footprint of the current ECAP. Which is something we had talked about with, like she referenced, Ms. Casarino over here before. She had talked about being able to expand that program. So yeah, we can double the footprint. We could add quite a few more portables and or stick-built buildings, common spaces, things like that within that space.
Any additions that need to be made as far as extra parking or any of that sort of thing needed to accommodate traffic?
So for right now, we're the staff park over here, so the extra gravel area that we're keeping, half of it was where the lumberyard was at, half of it was staff parking. We don't intend to impact the staff parking at all. We're just gonna take the space where the lumberyard was at. In the future, if that continued to grow, and we did have to back away from that, where the staff park right now, all the frontage improvements would be done on 44th. So we would add, that's the front door to ECAP right now. We would add, similar to what's there right now, additional staff parking along the front, and then have all our buildings set back off the road a little ways to accommodate that.
Last question is, how does the pick up and drop off for students, how does that compare like to the elementary? I know I've been by elementaries at the end of the day, and it is crazy with all the cars and pickup and stuff. Is that going to add that sort of impact to that area, or is that a different kind of situation?
No, I think you bring up a good point. 44th right here, which is a dead end road. Right now, the parents come in and they're usually stacking southbound. They pull into the parking lot and pick up their kids that way. Again, if we expand so big that we need to add to that parent loop, again, that would all be between 44th and the building. We would take it off street, whereas right now they're able to line up curbside and then pull into the parking lot.
Thanks.
I think, Craig, you covered at least half of my questions. And I think some of my questions were kind of just in the same vein, certainly about EVCC and just thinking about if we would have any additional capacity. First of all, it sounds like the building now is at capacity all day long.
That's correct. Right now, we have all classrooms being used. In fact, we've got 7 speech OTPT folks doing their therapy sessions in the cafeteria, which is not ideal. Yeah, we didn't have any other open rooms.
Okay. And then I'm curious, since the program at MP has only been there for a couple of years, kind of what the impetus was for opening it at MP, and if that doesn't exist anymore, was it really to provide CTE opportunities for kids, or?
My understanding is we were offered the options to open those classrooms, particularly full day. And there was this community responds to that, right? They want full day ECAP. And so it was a hard offer to turn down. And so at the time the MP classrooms were available, our main campus did not have classrooms available. And so that's why that was created.
Okay, I guess I'm thinking along the same lines a little bit. It's just having room and capacity for growth if there is need in the community for that all-day preschool experience. And then if the current site, if we're already kind of at capacity there, it makes me think about if it makes sense to move playground equipment from MP when maybe you might need that capacity in a year or two. But it's definitely something interesting to think about. And then I guess my other piece is, so basically the funds are use it or lose it. Do we know like when we have to use it? Is there a date certain, like use your money by September 30th or?
So every year there's that question. And so right now we have the money. But what I also know is the state budget is very tight. And so at what point is the state going to look at funds that ECAP is not using and just sitting there and decide to not offer it as rollover. And so that's why I consider it use it or lose it, because year to year, we really don't know.
What's the date of that rollover typically annually?
It's usually year by year. And
So
so
that date changes every year?
I believe, well, yeah, so I mean, we need to wrap up the budget by the end of every year. And then at that point, we need to let them know how much we have in our budget that we're rolling over to the next year. Yeah, their fiscal year is a calendar year.
Any more
I-
questions?
I think I'll be done. We have just a few minutes before the beginning of our regular
Okay.
session.
I guess just comments that I like the idea of having the ECAP on one site. I also would echo that I would hope we would be able to still accommodate CTE. I think there's a lot of opportunity for students to go into early childhood education fields. So that, and also that I too worry about what will happen with rollover funds. So I think that this is a good proposal, and I like the idea that it could still double in size at that campus too.
I have a few questions because I don't understand. Is this is this something that's coming to the board eventually for approval, or is this just basically something that's going to be done and this is being provided right now for information?
This is a study session just to kind of garner input from the board, and when we were to move forward, we would bring this formally before the board.
Okay. I have a question because I guess I don't understand the budget because it looks like the facility move costs were originally estimated at 275,000, but now they're 290,000. Is what's the difference?
So the line item that went from 275 to 290 was the addition of the fencing.
Okay.
Because of, we were originally going to use where the staff lot's at, and then we decided we could use where the vacant lot's at and not impact staff parking. But there has to be some fence modifications, and then there's currently like a gate there that secures the current campus. We would obviously want to open up that space for kids to be able to come and go, but that means we have to wrap fence around the backside of those portables too, so we don't have just anybody coming and going. So it's just a way to keep that campus secure. If we ever did expand further, as been brought up a couple times here, we would just move that fencing back farther and farther.
And I guess I'm concerned that it seems like the budget, this 13.7% adder is just a desire to use up the current available funding. I mean, we don't know for sure that we're not going to be allowed to carry over anything to next year. I guess I think that if we want to have a budget of 290,000, then that ought to be the budget, and it ought to sit at that and not expand it to use up whatever the available funding is in the expectation that it might be use it or lose it.
I think that the rationale around that 13.7% was a concern I had around budgeting up to the maximum amount, the 330. And I was interested in seeing what the buffer was, if there were changes in cost, that I wasn't comfortable bringing this before the board at the 330. It needed to be less than that. So that's kind of demonstrating the difference between actual cost and the carryover amount.
I think when the board approves this, we should be approving a specific budget with specific items and not have a slush fund. And then I'd also be interested in, it seems like between relocating everything, putting all of the ECAP programs in one site, and as well as reducing the requirements at MPHS, there ought to be some potential for some additional cost savings that we ought to look at and figure out what that might be. And I recognize there might be, if we want to continue the CET program and take high school students over to the other campus, then there's some costs associated with that, and that needs to be taken into consideration. But it seems like there is some potential cost savings here, and that ought to be looked at when it comes to the board approval.
So just really quick on that, in working a little bit with transportation and Kim, We have CTE students right now, 2 or 3 times a week, heading over to the middle school, either Totem or Cedar Crest. So they're just looking at adding the CTE students to help out at the ELC at the same time.
Okay. So the cost increase to that would be minimal because basically they'd be on the same buses, they're just making an additional stop. Okay.
I'd imagine we'll have some more conversation about this before it goes to board action. I do realize that it is 6:02, so we're going to cut this conversation short. But would appreciate another maybe work study or different way that we can kind of talk more about this, obviously before it comes to action for the board.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It is 6:02, the 19th of May, 2025, and we're going to call this regular session to order. All right, we're going to start off with the flag salute. So if everybody could stand up and take your caps off. Pledge allegiance to the flag. We acknowledge the original inhabitants of this area, the Snohomish people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered, and taken care of these lands. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and the water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, their stories, and their voices to form a more just and equitable society. Do I have approval of the agenda? I have a motion.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. All those, is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Superintendent's report.
All the superintendent items are dispersed throughout the agenda today.
Thank you very much. Communications and reports. We're going to start off with staff, student, community recognition. With this, we're going to start with staff recognitions introduced by Jody Runyon, Director of Communications.
Good evening. That came up quickly tonight, so thank you for waking me up. This evening, we are going to be recognizing staff from Quilceda Tulalip Elementary School and Marysville Pilchuck High School. So I'm going to start off with Principal Sarah Marie to come up and call up her staff members and say a few words about them. And then we'll follow that up with Mr. Peter Apple from Marysville Pilchuck High School.
Good evening. I hope everyone's doing well. My name is Sarah Marie Berner. I'm the very proud principal at Quilceda Tulalip Elementary School. And with me, hiding in the back here in the purple.
Hi, I'm Dr. Chelsea Craig, and I am the assistant principal.
And I have 3 lovely ladies up here. This is actually would have been a group of 12 total, but I'm going to bring us back in time just a little bit. Last spring, I had 2 of my staff members, Melissa Cullen and Breezy DeStefano. Miss Cullen is not able to be here this evening, but Breezy is right over here. These 2 wonderful teachers came to me and they were recognizing that some of the resources that we have had in place in our building weren't necessarily sufficient for meeting all of our students' needs around reading, just with some different allocations of funds and some other things going on. And also just with some different needs of families that maybe didn't have easy access to tutoring available that was well aligned to the school. And so they came to me with a proposal and they said, gosh, we have a dream to build a tutoring program here at the school that would be a community hub. Families could interact and be a part of that. We could help really kind of bridge that gap for families around some of the science of reading work we're doing here at the school. And so I said, gosh, let's go for it. And between last spring and this year, they did a ton of work and planning around that. They brought on board a bunch of our other teachers. We have Gina Blupert here today, Nikki Boswell here today that have just been a part of it in a very, many various capacities. But just knowing all of the ins and outs and the details that are required to have that level of partnership with families, to be looking at data that closely, to be giving your time after school, 3 days a week, all school year. That's a big give to our community and our students. And so I really wanted to recognize just all of the wonderful staff, and they can't all be here today, but all of the staff that contributed to that tutoring program that we were able to launch this year. So Miss Breezy, there's a certificate for you. And then I have some flowers here for all the ladies. This is one for Breezy. Love you. Thank you, ladies, for just all your work. We sure appreciate it. So, yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Do y'all want to do pictures? We doing pictures? Oh, wait, are we? Yeah, that's.
Sorry, I think Roy is trying to hide in the back. Didn't work. Okay, so Pete Apple, I'm the principal of Marysville Pilchuck High School. Tonight, our theme is actually to engage and inspire every student to prepare them for a lifetime personal success. Two variations on a theme. We have Roy Clemenson, who is our English teacher and drama teacher and has done some amazing work with his productions, and Kayla Carter, who's a science teacher, mostly focusing on biology and environmental science. I'm going to start talking about Kayla because this is Kayla's second year at MP after some time at Cedar Crest Middle School. It was interesting. She joined the staff going, they're just bigger. Yes, they are. They're just bigger. They're just like middle school students. In her first year, she started noticing students had passions for things that we weren't offering courses for. One of the things she noticed was our students really cared about ecology and environmental science and started having conversations with other members of the science department saying, why don't we have these programs available? What could we do? That started right away, and she actually proposed our AP Environmental Science course, which we've run this year for the first time. And our initial goal was, hey, can we just run one section of it? In Kayla's first year, we ended up with over 40 students in 2 sections. The majority of the students took their AP test this past week, and I'm happy to say that next year we're going to be over 60 students right now in our AP Environmental Science. So when we talk about the investment that the school board has made in our students, the addition of the AP Environmental Science curriculum has been exceptionally beneficial, so thank you very much. It's really helped keep some of those students active at our school. But Kayla didn't stop there. She noticed a property right outside of her classroom that was a lot of blackberry bushes. You could barely see the greenhouse, actually. This used to be a thriving program at MP, a model for the district area of our horticulture program, our agriculture sciences program, that had sort of fallen on disrepair. She saw potential and started planning things out last spring saying, hey, how can we get this taken care of? How many days were you there this summer? Almost, yeah, almost every day this summer. Anytime I was in the building, I knew I could go find Kayla. Yes, for those of you who don't know, greenhouses are very efficient at keeping heat in, which is great in the summer when the swamp cooler doesn't work either, and we don't have electricity for the fans yet either. She took the time, though, to get this started with a community outreach. And we really ended up partnering with Best Schools Marysville and saw this great collaboration between the school, community volunteers, and local businesses to really rehab that greenhouse to where we actually had a small plant sale this year as well. She saw where we could get students' passion there and brought us a horticulture program starting next year, bringing that program back, and has started a student gardening club as well, where students are flocking toward that. We can see this is just another pathway for success for our students. And in collaboration with Brian Beatty, we're opening up a new career and technical education pathway at MP next year with our horticulture program that we're looking to continue to build on in the coming years. So thank you, Kayla. I really appreciate all the efforts. Sorry, didn't want to drop a phone on the floor. Our second awardee tonight is Roy Clementson. It felt really odd this morning when somebody asked, hey, what time does the award for Roy start? And I looked at them like, who's Roy? Clem, by the way, is Roy. Nobody ever calls him that. Students don't call him that. Staff don't call him that. I was just shocked, but you know, he is amazing at connecting our students. You walk into his classroom and it's a classroom filled with joy. There are posters, Legos everywhere, bobbleheads, you name it about film, it is there in his classroom, and just him showing his love of the content that he teaches. And he brought that love actually in our redesigned senior English class this year, where every student now gets to learn more about writing about film, which was his passion that he brought to the course. A reminder you may not know, Clem hosts students from across the district in the drama program. We were really looking forward to expanding our program this year, and this year we started bringing students from MG down to participate in drama during the school day. So students at MG have opportunities for credit, students at LG have opportunities for credit, and students from MP. Next year, by the way, Roy, your enrollment is doubled, so I'm really looking forward to that. But our productions, and we've got some of our students and parents here with us, just celebrating those productions. And every year, the most powerful part of the productions is listening to these senior speeches on the last night. This year brought some tears to my eyes. It was amazing to hear our speakers talk. We had students from MP talk about what it meant and how excited they were every year to just see what the production was going to be and how could they keep being engaged. Students from MG talking about, wow, you know, this has been my passion and I'm so glad to live this out. Students from Legacy. We also had students who started on our traditional comprehensive high school pathway, but changed course midstream and graduated from Open Doors, but still wanted to be part of our drama program and were embraced by Roy and the crew and all the families. One of the seniors even joined us from homeschooling this year, her first time being in a public school since 4th grade. She talked about, she found a connection right there, something that could inspire her, something that gave her purpose to coming to school every day. Roy, I see that in your classroom every day, and I see that in our productions, and I couldn't be more proud to have you as a member of the MP staff. Thank you. And we have families who are going to help out with that.
Yes, we are. Thank you very much and congratulations. And we'd like to do a photo op with the board. And I think let's have the students come up and be around Mr. Clem. Oh, yeah. Miss Chelsea. Sarah Maria.
Right. That was great. That's where I ideally would end this meeting. But we're on to the next. Staff, student, or board reports. First up, under this section, school consolidation update. It's going to be presented by Dr. Miriam Mickelson.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Ramba. Thank you for the opportunity to provide school consolidation updates tonight. We are in the implementation phase of the consolidation process, and I'm just really grateful to everybody for their grace and flexibility as we continue to navigate a rough and challenging terrain. First set of updates for tonight, classroom moves, which will be done by our facilities team. That will begin after the last day of school. So not much to share when it comes to facility and operational updates for tonight. We are moving on schedule and teachers have been provided boxes and other things that they need. So this is a frequently asked question at this point. When will the moves occur? So shortly after school is out to our facilities team, they are going to have a busy summer. Staffing and HR updates, certificate for 25, 26. Do I keep going in and out? Okay, okay, much better, I think. Staffing and HR updates. We shared with principals their certificated staffing for 25, 26, and that work is ongoing. This information is what principals need to finalize their master schedule for next year. With certificated staffing already shared, and even though that work is ongoing, HR is now beginning to turn their attention to classified staffing. So that is underway for 25, 26. Communication updates. We are hosting a walk down memory lane event at MMS on May 28th at 6 o'clock until 7 o'clock. This is an opportunity for community members, families, staff, students, current and former, to walk the halls of MMS one last time before that facility is occupied by Liberty next year. And Liberty Elementary will also be hosting their own walk down memory lane on the 29th, the following day, 6 to 7 p.m. for the same purpose, to give anyone interested the opportunity to walk the halls before the facility is vacated. And huge shout out to our Director of Communications, Jody Runyon. She is taking the lead on the planning and working very hard to ensure that this is a special and memorable event for both MMS and Liberty. Curriculum and instruction updates. On Friday, May 16th, we hosted our first curriculum planning meeting for sixth grade for next year. It was a meeting that was open to all interested sixth grade teachers. if they're teaching that grade level next year. It was optional, the attendance was optional, but it was an opportunity for district staff to share pertinent information about next year and to gather input from teachers and also solicit questions that they may have about next year. So given that this was the first meeting, the time was spent primarily providing information and sharing context. Teachers ask excellent questions. Some elementary school updates. As the board is aware, we relaunched the sixth grade 0-hour band survey that was first opened last month. So we relaunched it on April 28th and closed it on May 9th. The results of the survey are in front of you. We had a total of 183 responses out of approximately 700 rising sixth graders. So that's a 26% response rate. If you recall, we had 119 responses for the first go around, so we gained 64 more responses. 58% express an interest in 0-hour band for next year. 49% said that they would need transportation to be able to participate. And 65% of them said that they would be able to rent or own instruments. Middle school updates. Current students who are in 6th and 7th grade at MMS, along with our families, receive notification through the mail and email about their school placement for next year. And as you know, the placement is based on neighborhood elementary schools as per our school district's boundary flow chart. Some exceptions to the placement are approved transfers, lottery or in-district transfer for 10th Street, or a district-initiated placement due to a specific program or student need, such as special education, for example. And we continue to be as collaborative as we possibly can. This slide includes a list of our efforts around collaboration, with the most current being the 6th grade curriculum planning. So that's the update for tonight. Does the board have any questions?
So I was curious, how much participation did you have for our 6th grade teacher group?
We had about 45. Yeah, was it Lori, 45? About 45. Okay, so it was off. Yeah. Mhm. Lower than 45, sorry. So Lori Knudsen and Melissa facilitated the meetings.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess I think I'll leave the remainder of my questions for other folks.
Well, since you took my first question, question on 0-hour band. You said 106 indicated they're interested. When is the decision going to be made that it is a yes, a definite go, or no, it's not? And is there some sort of deadline where people need to say, yes, I'm committed and into this? Because again, 106 indicating they're interested doesn't mean that necessarily there's going to be 106 kids doing band. So.
Yes, a really good question. I will invite Dr. Ramba to correct me if I am mistaken, but my understanding is that we are moving forward with this and that the survey is for planning purposes.
That is correct. And I would also add that we will give an opportunity for families again in the fall to raise their hand and say we're interested. So this is not the only opportunity.
I have a couple questions. First off, I found it interesting that 119 people said they were able to rent their own instruments, but only 106 were interested. I guess that may indicate that there are more potential 0-hour band members than actually initially expressed interest if they answered in that way. So
Yes,
it seems like this could really grow to be quite a thing. So,
Yes.
and then I my recollection with regard to how the boundary placement was going to work for the middle schools was that the elementary schools that are currently, the elementary school boundaries that are currently feeders to MPHS, those students would be going to Totem, and the ones that are currently feeders into Marysville Getchell would be going to Cedar Crest. Is that basically what was followed, or am I wrong, or?
Is that correct? Yep. Yes.
Okay, and basically that was followed except with, okay, that was followed except where you mentioned, specific individual exceptions for like special ed or requests for transfers and so forth. So basically that was a standard rule, and then families could choose to do something different and follow the established procedures.
Yes.
Okay. I had one other question. Trying to remember what it was. The lottery for 10th Street. When does that take place, or has it taken place?
It has already taken place. It was
Okay,
concluded.
so folks have been notified.
Yes.
Okay. That was my questions. Thank you.
So I had a follow-on question to yours, and really just curious the response from families as they've been notified of their placements for next year, and kind of the response back. Have we had a lot of requests for transfers, some requests for transfers? How are we like navigating through that with families?
Speaking to Jody about the letters that went out, there was only one inquiry or one question related to the letters. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Let our student rep. You got any questions or comments? Right, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to multilingual learning annual update. This is going to be presented by Vonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Schools. Hello, Vonnie. You have a question? You can ask. All right, Doc, we have one more question.
Well, I guess mine was more with the classified and making sure, because I know we had the timelines for when or how that works for when they had to be notified in regards to like labor contracts and stuff, making sure that we're in all those timelines, because we had an issue with that last year. So I just want to make sure that we're following all of that. I'm sure you're right on top of it.
In fact, today, I think, is the timeline for the 30-day notification.
Thanks, Doc. Yeah, go ahead, Vonnie.
All right, Board Superintendent Rimba, I'm excited to be here today to talk to you a little bit about our multilingual learners program. And we're going to start with just a basic annual update of what we're doing, but then I also added a few slides in at the end around kind of our goals and the directions that we're going in this area in the district. So I'm pleased to have the opportunity to get to step in for Dr. Hill and be able to work on this program, which is one of my favorites. So just an overview of what our programs are in Marysville. We have just over 1,500 students who qualify for ML services, and that's about 16.3% of our population. That's fairly high. That's a good percentage of students in the state of Washington to have in one district. So it really does impact a large majority, or a large percentage, I should say. Mostly Spanish, Russian, and Ukrainian. Those are our three largest, although we have, I believe we have over 19 or 20 different languages that are spoken in our district. Again, just kind of a topical overview. You can kind of see where these students land by grade level, how many are in each grade. Um, it's always nice to see the numbers get smaller as you move through the grade levels. Some students join us, though, later, just depending on when they may join public education or come to Marysville. So a couple basics around multilingual learners and the things that we ensure to provide quality services to students and make sure we're meeting their civil rights. We have very specific ways that we identify students for services. So when a student enrolls in the district, they take a home language survey, or they may we may present a survey from their past district. But on that survey, there's a whole lot of questions, but the two that we look at for services is what is the first language that your students learn to speak or understand, and then what is the language that is spoken most at home. If either of those two questions are answered with anything other than English, those students are then able to be screened to see if they qualify for services. And that must be done within the first 10 days that they are enrolled. So it's quick and it's a guaranteed right that we need to have in place for them right away. If students screen and it shows that they can or should access services, they now are considered one of those 1,568 students that are our multilingual learners for Marysville School District. And we watch their growth and monitor their progress in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. We do that not only with the WIDA Access assessment that is given every spring, that just concluded maybe a couple weeks ago. So all of our students that are currently qualified went and took their annual assessment. But we also look at formative assessments throughout the year. And I'll talk a little bit about how we have staff and how the staff monitor that progress to make sure that our students are taking steps towards exiting that program and being hopefully bilingual by the time they're out. Once a student has exited the program, and you can see there's a few things for KN1, they have to have a composite score of a 4, which you can score between a 1 and a 6 on those 4 areas, reading, writing, speaking, listening, and then they put them all together and it comes out with something at the end, the composite score. And a 4.0 or higher for Ks and 1s exits them from the program, and a composite score of 4.7 is what you need for 2nd through 12th grade. Or if you have a 4.3 to a 4.6, but you score a level 3 or 4 on the ELA SBA, those two things combined is the other way to exit. Once the students exit the program, they have access to continually monitoring for another 2 years. So they may not have explicit services, but we track and make sure that they're still able to access the English curriculum, which is what we use in public schools. The OSPI has 5, actually 6, I didn't write one up here, but they have 5 approved program models. And here in the Marysville School District, we have newcomer programs, which is when a student comes to the country, they qualify for newcomer services. And those services can last anywhere from 6 months to a year. And it is really meant as a fast trajectory. There's a built-in exit criteria. And this is not only services for the student, but when you're a newcomer, your family gets services too. So we embed that with also teaching those new families how to access public education, because those of us that live in it and work in it, we get it, but it's different. And so newcomer services not only are for students just to be able to navigate the world around them, but also for their families. Supportive mainstreaming, I'll talk about this in a little bit. This is a system where students are receiving all of their services in their general classrooms, and people are pushing in or training staff to be able to get that language acquisition within the content. And then content-based sheltered instruction, we use this a small amount in Marysville. We're going to work to move that down. So that is I'm going to call it a segregated program, because students come out, and you'll see this more in the higher grade levels when students are coming in late, or they're long-term ML learners. So the most common one that we have here in Marysville right now is a staff member might teach English language, so it's aligned to all the English standards, but they are They are experts or qualified or have endorsements in ML or EL services so that those students are getting language acquisition. Language acquisition can be taught in any subject, though. It doesn't necessarily need to be ELA. That happens to correlate pretty often. So then there's also a transitional bilingual, which we don't currently do, and a dual language, which we do not currently do. This is just a quick overview of the budget. We have two main budget sources that we use to support our multilingual learners. We have that top one, which we consider to be called TBIP, or Transitional Bilingual Instructional Programming, and that is our larger fund, and it is just under $2 million. And the Title III, which is our federal money, that top one is state money. The Title III, which is our federal money, which is called LEP services, and that number has actually changed because we added our rollover in, but it's a very small amount. But when I was putting it in here, it was 149,000, just over. You can see that the majority of the money goes to teaching or staffing. Those are the same things in both. And then there's also call outs for professional development and instructional resources. So one of the things that I was tasked to work on was really looking at our current program and then launching that to make sure that we're fully aligned with state-approved programming and that we're meeting the civil rights of students. So as we're working out in the next 3 years, here's some of the major things that I did not do this alone. This was work with the ML specialists throughout the district, and then also principals have been weighing in. So this is definitely a team approach. It's nothing that I could possibly make up on my own. But our overarching goals for the next 3 years is that we're going to move more and more to supportive mainstreaming at all of our schools, and that we can push newcomers into the classroom setting sooner. So in other words, we're going to increase our launch for those kids and those families. And then only provide that content-based sheltered instruction as minimally as we can. We don't want to do that more than we have to. We want them in with their peers. We want them in a fully inclusive environment. It happens, but we want to try to minimize that. We want all staff that are trained to provide meaningful access to content, and that would be using a sheltered instructional model. You may have heard of GLAD strategies before, or PSYOP. Those are kind of the two main ones that we use in this state, but we have a goal to have every teacher that teaches in Marysville School District to once again be trained up and have their tools sharpened in that area. Our next goal is to also have staff trained in the co-planning and co-assessing with the support of our EL endorsed specialists. This is to provide them specific language acquisition skills at their level and grade. So there's access to content. How do I make sure that they're getting what they need? But then also it's that ability to be able to do very specific language teaching and embed that in the teaching that's going on in the classroom. So these are goals. This is work we're going to do, but we're excited about it. We want to increase the number of EL endorsed staff in this district. Okay, so anytime we can have staff that are trained in EL, they are able to provide, we can cluster students a little bit more in their classrooms, things like that. So it's a benefit to us. The goal is to have in each building a ratio of 1 to 50, and we aim to do that. And then we are large enough and we do have enough students, and it's good for the community, but we would like to begin to plan for a Spanish dual language program to be started and then growing in 2028. So right now we talk a little bit about Liberty is one of those schools that has talked about an interest in that. But after working with the specialists at many schools, we do have some interested staff in starting to build that program, but we need some staffing to be able to do that. So changes that we're going to see for next year, you're going to see that we, with those funds, that I gave you a review of what we're doing this year. It's going to be similar. We're reorganizing a little bit, but a position that we haven't had in a while is a district person that is absolutely focused 100% on ML and all the work that goes into multilingual. And you can see some of the jobs that they will do as a district ML specialist. I've been talking to our current building level specialists, and they are knowing about this position. And we do have interested people inside the district that have the skill set to be able to do this. So they would lead the building specialist. They monitor that plan, that 3-year plan, and put in specific steps to get there. there. They'll provide individual and group support to different specialists who might be trying to tackle different things, whether it's training for a professional development in their building, or just maybe some personal hurdles that they're having as they work with their staff. This person will partner very closely with the ESD to make sure that we are on track and doing those things that are best practices and that align with the state. And then, yeah, monitoring our accountability plan. We're going to continue to develop, enhance our building ML specialists. So we have, I'm going to count them up here, 8. We have about 15 ML specialists at the building level, and we are working to increase their capacity for their roles. And a lot of these things are stepping up. So the top one is probably one of the newest things that they're going to be asked to do next year, and they will serve on the building leadership teams in their buildings where they work, so that they have the ability to articulate the needs of the multilingual learners and embed that work into the school improvement plans, and make sure that, again, that instruction is happening as a core instruction, and it's not a standalone, it's not a pullout, it's not something that goes out of the classroom. And so there you can see some of the things that they do. I won't go through all of them. I think I'm going long, sorry. And then just increasing access to resources. So we're working on that right now, making sure that we have translated versions of our texts and novels, so that it's not that we just give them, hey, you speak Spanish, you read this novel in Spanish. The key is making sure that those students have a Spanish and an English, so that they can work on their English, but they can reference when they get stuck. And that's really when you have a high level of resources for kids. We are building out our library for professional learning, so that some of those building leaders will be able to do that with their staffs or within groups at the district office. And then we're building out some ML specific technology, so students can use that at school or at home if they want to continue their growth. And that's everything. Probably too much, sorry.
No worries. Okay. Any questions from the board?
I was going to say, I appreciate the in-depth report on ML. I think it's been a program that's been of interest for quite a while. So I appreciate all the work that went into the report and all the information, still digesting. So I may come back with more questions. I think 2 comments. I'm curious, the TOSA position, is that one that is budgeted for and planned for inside of the district reorganization?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Coming out of designated funds for that program.
Okay, thank you. And then I was thrilled to see a dual or a dual language program, at least in the planning stages. I don't know if I remember correctly, but I think the state is going to have some type of requirement at some point that we need to meet. But just wondering if there might be additional grant or other funding we can use. I certainly think in Marysville, it would be a welcome program, so.
Yeah, I would say that probably the 2 big things that we'll have to do early on, and I believe it's 2032 is when we should all have those dual language programs. We need to really push the hiring of bilingual staff, or really bilingual when you're going to do a dual language program. So we need to hire on and focus on getting some bilingual staff in the district. And then also it's going to be that PD part. It's making sure that all the pieces, whether it's the administration or the other teachers in the building, or that staff, we've got to really focus in on training early so that we can build that out. In most dual language programs, you're going to start with like K1. And then that gives you a year then to be ready to turn on 2 and 3. So what you do is you begin to build out a cohort with some, active growth.
Can I just ask a clarifying question about dual language program?
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between, or is that immersion? Is that like an immersion program, immersion language program?
I am not sure of the direct nuances. A dual language program, a 2-way dual, which is the one that we're really going for, a 2-way dual language program is when you have both English speaking students and students speaking a second language that each do 50-50. And the key is that 50% or more of their day is in the other language. And so immersion, because that's an older term, I'm not sure exactly what the nuance is there, but a lot of these are based on how much of their day is spent in what language.
So like the John Stanford International School in Seattle used to have
Yeah, they used to be
Spanish
around. I just don't, I didn't
and
wasn't involved.
then Japanese.
Yeah, and I think Bellevue had a Spanish immersion program, and I just wasn't involved at that level, so I don't know the nuances of the percentage of the day, those kinds of things.
So all students would learn Spanish in part of the day, and then all students would do all English instruction in the second part of the day.
Yep, so it could be
Essentially.
very similar to that two-way dual language, absolutely.
I know not just in Marysville, but in many districts, it's hard to find people that are or educators that are certificated in this area, especially for the specialist roles, those sort of things. How are we doing? Are we having trouble finding people to staff those roles? Because I know it's one thing to say we want to do this, but I've seen several cases where people that were not endorsed in that area had to do an ELL classroom because there was just nobody else to teach it. So how are we doing as far as staffing that way?
Sheer number of staff with EL endorsements, we're low. We're not critical mass. We don't need to put unendorsed people in those areas. The more that we focus and start working towards a really quality program, that in and of itself, number one, will draw people in because they'll see that Marysville cares about dual language and they will come this way, that they talk. The dual language community, they know what's going on. It's going to be really important that we develop our own. We have many bilingual paras that we could get into programs and turn them into teachers. We have students that are graduating with certificates of biliteracy. We want to, maybe not overly guide them, but make sure that they see education as a wonderful opportunity. But it's a constant. I don't think it ever goes away. But right now we are not at critical mass. We have a lot of EL endorsed staff that maybe aren't using their endorsements, and we probably might turn that volume up a little bit.
Just last question, you talked about the training, is there going to be something set up district-wide or something that's given to individual schools, or is it just going to be left up to individual schools to decide what they do?
Well, I'm going to say yes. So yes, because we are developing some targeted district support. So like this summer, we are providing 2, maybe more depending on interest, full session PSYOP trainings for staff K-12. And at the building, the school principal with the ML specialist, they will probably develop specific things for that building around some other strategies, whether they're PSYOP strategies or GLIDE strategies, but they'll be doing some ongoing embedded growth for those that may have not participated. But we're going to try to do an ongoing district level, get people in, and then couple that with work at the buildings.
Can you tell us more about how we're complete, like how Marysville's doing the newcomer programs? What I'm specifically curious about is how are we implementing this now with families? Like, because they could also get the services to help them. How do we actually do that right now?
Well, right now it's all on the backs of our multilingual specialists. And that's one of the things that we want to really support moving forward is that it's hard to have 15 dedicated people carrying the weight of 1,568 students, right? And not all of them are newcomers, but that right now is really on their shoulders. When we have new families come in and they are newcomers, they themselves have to make that connection with the families, get them access to resources. We definitely use some of our liaisons that are either Spanish or Ukrainian to, again, come in. We've got things printed out and in text to help them. And it's just constantly touching base. Like right now, the ML specialists are all on task. They're wonderful. I love working with them. They're really great, but they're all on task reaching out and getting those kids signed up for summer school. We have spots left. And I said, I want to have an ML kid in every spot just because I wanted to do it. And they're working really hard to get that done. So I'm hoping to push that out as part of that training. Great question.
I guess I just had a question about that because when we met with ML families at the library as just to have a listening session with them. They just had a lot of questions about accessing some of those services.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate this presentation. And I would be curious, hold on, I had a note in here about the accountability plan. This is a presentation. When is the accountability plan going to be complete? And or is this just a like synopsis of that plan that are you creating it or is OSPI create that? And I would just like to see that.
The more
Yep,
articulated,
more
yeah, there's some
specifics.
templates and things that we will build out in regards to those pieces. So yes. There will be more.
I'm just curious, what, on an average year, what percentage of the multi-language learners fall in that newcomer category?
Oh, that's a really tough question. It's usually the lower the grade, the more newcomers there are. So, sometimes specific events, the war in Ukraine brought in newcomers. It's a handful. It varies building by building. There could be a building that might currently have 12 newcomers. There might be a building that has 2.
Okay,
So it's
I'd just
really
be
hard
curious,
to target it.
When you have an opportunity, I'd just be
Yeah.
curious to know, like, what's the average percentage during a given year that fall in that newcomer category? Because I would imagine the workload associated with those is higher than it is with regard to the others.
It is, and the ML specialists have to carve out time in their
Yeah.
day to do newcomer services at every building. That's absolutely paramount that they do that. I have those numbers and I have them on papers in my office, so I can get you those newcomer numbers for this year. Our well, that's not really going to be dependent on WIDA. Yeah, I can tell you our newcomer numbers for this year.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, next up, upcoming events presented by Jody Runyon, Director of Communications. Also, Greg, sorry to call you out, but are you able to pass me that hearing of business of visitors sign-in sheet? Oh, okay, thank you.
Good evening again. Yes, May is halfway over, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a ton of opportunities for some really fun things happening in our schools. So I'm not going to go over this list extensively, but I do want to point out a few things. We have elementary school grad walks coming up. I don't know if any of you have ever attended those, but they're a whole lot of fun. So if you have an opportunity to put a couple of those on your calendar and just stop in and see those senior students walking in the elementary schools in their cap and gowns, inspiring our youngest learners, it's pretty amazing. Thank you for scrolling on that, Walker. I appreciate it. There's also 8 concerts between now and May 29th. So don't miss an opportunity for some music. I also want to point out that there's an 8th grade honoring tomorrow. I just learned about that earlier today, that there's an 8th grade honoring at the Gathering Hall tomorrow evening. And also on May 21st, the Rotary is handing out $233,000 in scholarships to students. You're not going to see that on the gifts to the district, but that is a gift for our graduates. So that is an amazing event and we hope you can attend. I won't mention, but they are on here. We do have the 2 walks down memory lane to honor those schools and all that they have given to our students and staff over the years. And then on the backside, we've got graduations. They're just around the corner and a perfect opportunity to honor our students who have achieved and will be graduating, class of 2025. So thank you. I know it's a long list. It's linked on the agenda. So please feel free to take a deeper look at that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
right, we're going to move into the hearing of business of visitors. It seems like we didn't have anybody sign up today, so we'll move on to I, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion for the minutes?
I move to approve the work study and regular session minutes of April 21st, 2025, and regular session minutes of May 5th, 2025 as presented.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, we're gonna move into the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just wanted to make a comment. At least on the personnel report, there's several educators on there that my children in particular were privileged to have, and bittersweet to see them moving on to the next phase in their life. But we have been awfully lucky to have been blessed by having them here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just one comment. It's cool to see the requests for travel, that all those have been taken care of by the Washington School Principals Association, the 10th Street Boosters, something called the Perkins Federal Health Science Grant. So all these things being taken advantage of so that our staff and students get opportunities to get out there in the real world. So I think that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, thank you. You want to do it? I'll do it. Okay. I'll read off the gifts to the district here. As Jody mentioned, obviously there's a 200,000 plus donation from Sir Optimus. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Rotary. I read Sir Optimus. That's the first gift, so I said that. But on this list, we have Sir Optimus International of Marysville, gift to McKinney-Vento Trust. It's a monetary gift for the purpose of funds to support the Connection Center, and that's in the amount of $1,000. And Waste Management gave to Cascade Elementary equipment. That'd be an ice machine, reusable ice packs, plates, bowls, and silverware for health room and teacher lounge. And the purpose is fostering a greener and more sustainable school environment for both staff and students. And this is a monetary amount of $1,000. Washington Traffic Safety Commission gave to Cascade Elementary equipment, student patrol supplies, the purpose being items to help with patrol before and after school. And the monetary value of this gift was $300. Marysville Co-op Supply, Inc. gifted to the Early Learning Center agricultural items with a monetary value of $24.09. All totaling $2,324.09. So thank you very much to our partners out in the community giving these gifts, which ultimately are going to be used for the success of our students. So really appreciate it. Any other discussion for consent agenda? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. We're going to move to informational items. First on the list, Snohomish County Detention Center interlocal agreement. This can be presented by Vonnie Walker, Executive Director of Secondary Education.
All right, this is just a quick informational report. This is our annual agreement with the Snohomish County Detention Center. They serve any of our impacted youth, court-impacted youth, and mainly if we have students there, it is paid for through their apportionment that goes over. There is a small amount of money that districts that do enter into this agreement use for costs associated beyond that. So it used to be that teachers had to make lesson plans and send them off to the detention center Look, you're nodding. I know, Craig, you remember doing this. And they really stepped up their program and now they provide those services there, which is a real help to the district. And so that's what it is.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board?
So I just had a quick question. So we pay essentially a set amount. So it doesn't necessarily fluctuate based on the number of our students that may or may not be there.
I was ready for that question. Yep, you bet. So I asked to have data pulled from 2018 until 2023 just to see how much it was, which is really interesting because the program just started a while ago. And when the first year that it started, our portion was $24,000. The second year went up to 38. The third year it went down to 17, and then in 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24, it's been 8,000, 2,000, 3,000. So I'm guessing the system's established now, and so that cost is not large anymore. It's been small for the last couple of years, and Susan wanted me to let you know that even though it's been down for a while, we fully encumber 40,000 every year just in case, and then if it's not there. So that's so that we make sure that we have that earmarked out. And you know, that's something you guys can decide moving forward. It was one of those things where there was that year of 38. It's starting to fall far enough back in the past. So it'll be something to think about.
Thank you so much for pulling those numbers.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move on to the 2025, 2026 NWESD, NWRDC, and WSIPC membership agreement. That's too many acronyms in one informational item.
Okay, so basically, this is also an annual renewal that the district has been using for a long time. And basically, when you look at it, ESD 189 is the agreement with, and NWRDC is the Northwest Regional Data Center, and WSIPC is the other half of the same component. And one provides the support service for training, and the other provides the technical software support. It's a per student fee, and same fee across the state, and there's a fiscal aspect to it and a student aspect. And this is basically our accounting system, our HR system, our student record system. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those for you.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I have one quick one. Sorry. I seem to remember that there's a transition that is happening for school districts. Do we know or have an idea when Marysville is going to be transitioned?
Yeah, it's my understanding it's going to happen in the next fiscal year. And it's basically, it's called Qualitative, and it's the next version of the Skyward program that we are currently using. Basically, what happens with it is NWRDC will provide support in cleaning up the data that's in their current system. And then they come and provide on-site support for the migration of the information into the new system, and then provide ongoing training and support when you go live with Qualitative, because it is quite different than the system we have now. It uses the same information, but the structure of it is quite different. So it will provide, we'll need some training provided for staff.
Thank you for that, Dan. The transition to cumulative across the state has been rocky. I think most districts have reported that to be the case. So Marysville being in the last wave is probably beneficial. Hopefully some of the challenges have been and will continue to be worked out. And that last wave is 26, 27, and we're a part of that group.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
Finance report.
All right, thank you for that. I think you're staying up for this next one, monthly financial report for April 2025.
I think I am. So this is the financial report as of April 30th and enrollment report as of May 1st. So we only have one more month of reporting before we we'll have our annual FTE report, which is basically what is used to determine how much funding we receive in this current fiscal year. And you can see right now the average year to date is about 89.15. So it will most likely drop slightly because June is normally a little less than May, though 2 years ago it went up. So we're going to end up somewhere on that 8900, 8910 would be my estimate at this point. When we look at the revenue, the trend is almost exactly what I would expect it to be and what we've seen in previous years. You have the two high months, which is your levy collections, and then you have your revenue based upon apportionment. You will notice that we will expect July and August to be 2 months where your revenue jumps, and that's because it's 12% and 12.5%. Roughly 25% of your total revenue comes in the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So that will help when we talk about looking at fund balance. On the expenditure side of it, you can see that is pretty steady except for this month. And when I look at that, you can also look at the 2 previous months and you can see that we've spent less than we have in previous years. And that really has to do with the cash flow timing of when we pay things. And we're catching up. That's the good news that I see from this, is that we actually have some money there in this particular month to catch up some of the things that may traditionally have been paid in previous months. So that's really why you see a higher expenditure this month than you would expect. Because if you look at that dotted line, you can see it's the 2 previous months, it's about as low as it's ever been. And that's part of that process. Trend wise, we're in really good shape. We're 2/3 of the way through our fiscal year, which ends in August. So 66.7% of the way. Our expenditures are at 66%, and that's of the readjusted budget amount, not the original 199. And our revenue is close to 68%. So we're right where I would expect to be if I was reporting this for any other time. And this is fund balance. And fund balance is different than cash balance. This takes into account loans. So even though we have the cash, we still owe the money to the capital projects fund. So the fund balance takes that into account as a liability. So you can see that in April, again, because that levy collection, we have a very positive $5.6 million fund balance, and then expect that to drop. And then again, we look at June, and that's the one that we keep talking about, is that big month that is the concern. Just looking at our cash flow, you can kind of see what we expect. Again, the red line is what would have happened without the capital project loan. The line in the middle is kind of where we are and why we're talking about a resolution tonight for another loan. And then where we expect to end up at August, and that's that $3.8 million fund balance we keep talking about. There are other funds that we never seem to talk about much, but capital projects has almost $7.4 million. Debt service has about 5.6 million in it. One interest payment in June is all that's left in this fiscal year. ASB close to $1.8 million, and transportation vehicle fund has about 800,000. Any questions I could answer for you?
Questions from the board?
So I'm curious with our debt service fund, and this is, are we going to have remaining funds there once our kind of current debt service is paid for, right? So I think at some point we're retiring a loan.
Correct.
And I just don't remember the month that the loan retires.
I believe it's December of 2025 is your last payment.
Okay.
And yes, there will be a balance left in the debt service fund.
So what typically would happen with that if you don't have any additional debt to service?
I believe there's a process where that can be transferred into capital projects fund. But I have asked Susan to verify that process with the ESD because they're very aware of how that works. So that, you know, you will have that answer, that's a concrete answer of what you can do with those dollars. So they don't just sit in that fund.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I have a few questions. And I'll start with the revenue. In the past, we were making projections of what we thought the revenues would be for the remainder of the year. I see we're not doing that now, but are we still anticipating finishing up with about the 193 million that we have been talking about in the past?
Yes, possibly a little higher, but at least 193, yes.
Okay. But you're not making any projections as to what month those.
No, because when I look at July and August, there's a lot of questions about when grant funds come in.
Okay.
That could completely skew what that picture looks like. So, you know, I could do a projection and say, based on previous years, this is the pattern we expect. But I'm hoping we do a better job collecting some of those federal funds sooner, which would change that trajectory.
Okay, and I don't think it's really important for the board to know exactly what month you're projecting it's
Mhm.
going to come in, but I think it is important to know that we still think we're going to hit that $193 million mark.
I don't think I'm almost 95% sure we will. And there are a few more variables that we haven't talked about. One of those is that there was something passed by the legislature that is providing more MSOC funds that will, and I'm not sure which month that comes in, but there's some more money that's unexpected in there. So there's a few things that make me feel real confident you'll get to that 193.
And then second, yeah, as you note, we have a considerable jump in the expenditures for this past month, and presumably, and as you said, we received a significant chunk of money, so we now could, I guess, get more current on our payments out, and so took advantage of that. But are we anticipating that the expenditures will are we anticipating that the expenditures will level off back to the previous levels coming forward, or and in particular, are we going to hit that 190 million number that we thought we were going to? So we did in fact have a general fund balance at the end of the year.
Yes, and I'd be happy next month to share with you a cash flow projection I've done. And I'm looking at getting to that 190 close to, or 191, somewhere in that range. And currently I have in that projection about $3 million that's not encumbered at this time. So that's that difference of your utility bills. We're going to have expenditures for categorical programs that we need to spend more money in title or whatever in order to claim those funds. So yes, I believe it's going to level off, though it's going to be a little bit higher, I believe, in June and July, just because of those categorical programs and having to spend those dollars to get reimbursed for them. But again, feeling pretty confident we're going to get to that expenditure level and that revenue level that we've been talking about, you know, all year long.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about it like a $3.8 million ending
Fund
fund
balance.
balance
Correct.
for quite some time, and
Yeah,
you still have a
it
high.
still looks there. Yes.
And then the issue with regard to the I guess it would be drop compared to prior month projections, but the drop in the in the cash flow balance for June, that you do believe that is a temporary issue, just a matter of when we get.
It's an issue that happens every single year. The only difference is that once you get to, say, $6 million in fund balance, you can cover that drop.
Right.
So that's really what the work is to get to a level that's sufficient enough that when we have those drops in January and February and June that are normal in every district across the state, it has to do with the 5% funding in June versus 12% in July, that you have the cash flow to cover that. So yes, I think once you get through this cycle of this fiscal year, it looks like you will get to that point.
To be able to cover that without having to borrow from the capital fund.
I would say, and this is just You know, by August of 2026, I think you will be in that position where your fund balance is strong enough.
Okay.
I'm not saying you may not have to do it next year at some point. Again, it's a 3-year plan to get to that point where you have that solid fund balance. And the goal is by next August, 2026, you will have a sufficient fund balance that you would not have to borrow.
And I have another question about the debt service fund. I mean, that is designed to pay off specific bonds, I presume.
Correct.
That, and those are those, did I understand correctly that those are in fact due for payment sometime this year?
There's an interest payment in June.
Okay.
And there's a principal and probably an interest payment also in December. And my understanding is that is the end of the debt.
Okay. So that will go to, I mean, the liability with respect to that will go to zero by the end of the year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we'll have to figure out what to do with assuming there will be sufficient funds, if there's an excess fund, we'll have to figure out what to do with that.
Correct. And there's a process for that that's prescribed.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Any other questions from the board? All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move into the board action portion of this meeting. First up on the board action list is the school year calendar for 2025-2026. And this is going to be presented by Dr. Rumbaugh.
All right, you have before you the calendar for the upcoming academic year. And this is developed collaboratively with our labor partners. And it is, no pun intended, but it is quite the calendaring event to get all of our labor partners together at the same time to be able to bring the calendar forward. So that is what you see. And pending board approval, we will get this out to our staff and our families who are always anxiously awaiting when winter break is.
All right, do I have a motion for this action?
I move to approve the proposed 2025-2026 school year calendar as presented.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
I know this is all developed between all the labor groups and stuff. I was just kind of curious as if we know what the thinking was to starting the school year before Labor Day. Whether it's right or wrong, I know a lot of people have in their mind that school starts after Labor Day. I know that's when we do before Labor Day, I think it impacts attendance. And there's also that kind of false notion, I think, among a lot of people that, well, we don't do anything important the first couple of days of school anyway, which could not be further from the truth. So I'm just wondering if any consideration was given to that. And and related to that, if the 28th is going to be what we normally have been calling like a soft start day for the elementary, and I think that some of the transitions, like just freshmen on campus, that sort of thing.
I'm going to try to track all your questions. Yes. Yes to your question around what is the day that's picked and what are the considerations that are taken to make that decision. One piece that's important is that our contracts do have perpetual calendar language that help guide that decision. And sometimes, it's usually every 7th or 8th year we get into this funny spot. Other years we're angsting because school starts September 8th or 9th. And so we're just kind of in that place where we are beforehand. And I think the communications work is to ensure what you said, that we do in fact, hope and expect students are here. And then soft start, yes, we are working. Of course, kindergarten kind of has their own schedule for those family connection days. But yes, we are hoping at the high school that our first day will be for 9th graders only. And we're in the process of getting that waiver from the state.
I think, Craig, you took the question that I had, and certainly something as we've been talking about our finances. And it sounds like we've kind of taken that into consideration. I think I've heard recommendations that just in terms of student count, districts like looking at a post-Labor Day start. And I think what I heard from you is that there's maybe some provisions in our contract that kind of, you just elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. So the count that we look for, the initial count is the 4-day count. And so that would be the 4th recorded attendance day. So that would get us into that first week of September. And then, of course, every month after that. We also make some decisions internally around the 10-day count. But that is a good thing for just the board to generally be aware of as we create calendars, that day 4 is a big day for us.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Anything down there? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. On to the next board action, number 2, WIAA membership renewal resolution number 2025-05, presented by Kinlan Jackson, Athletic Director. Hello, Kinlan. Oh, wow, thank you.
Thank you to the board, Superintendent Dr. Rumba. Well, I'm here to recommend that you all continue the WIA membership renewal resolution plan. That's pretty much it. Do you have any questions for me?
There's no way we can participate in sports without being a WIAA member, correct?
Correct.
Let's take a motion first.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a motion for this?
I move to approve resolution number 2025-05 WIAA 2025-2026 membership renewal.
I second.
All right, motion and a second. Discussion, go ahead.
Yeah, just just to be clear that we can't compete in interscholastic sports without being a WIAA member, correct?
Correct.
I noticed that so this is for Marysville Pilchuck, Marysville Getchell, and Tulalip Heritage. And I don't see Legacy. Is that, they don't have? I see. So even if it's a Legacy student who's participating in their home school, they would still be covered if there was any incident or?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
I guess this, maybe I missed it last year, but I thought it's interesting. It's an annual renewal. Because I don't remember doing this last year. And my question is, I've always thought that I know our middle school athletics are limited, but I thought that they were also, they're operate on their own kind of sports program, not part of WIAA.
Middle school operates under Northwest Conference.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Is there what do we pay to WIAA?
So last year, what we paid to WIA was a total of $12,100, and that was for the 24-25 year. What it includes is sports, of course, the coverage of it, LNI premiums for the Washington State Officials Association. It also covers the state tournaments, management of operations, development, example sponsors fees and that kind of stuff, trophies and conference workshops that are offered to all of us. And then also I may have said this already, but the WIA LNI claims.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move to board action number 3, wrap, purchase of 2 transit vans. I can present this. Dr. Annie Carnell is not able to attend tonight, so I'll just present this. I know that she went over this last meeting in detail, so I'll just read through her background and information, and then we can bring it up for a motion. So Regional Apprenticeship Pathways is a Washington State recognized pre-apprenticeship school serving students from across Snohomish County to ensure that all pre-apprentice graduates are ready for their preferred future. Regular participation in field trips, construction competitions, career building events, visits to apprenticeship schools and construction job sites in varying stages of development is essential. District busing time constraints are prohibitive, and regular use of charter buses is not cost effective. Purchasing 2 8-passenger transit vans will enable RAP pre-apprentices to access learning experiences beyond school walls, exposing them to workforce expectations and educating them for the world they'll live and work in. As far as budgetary impact, the Washington State Legislature fully funds RAP, and the purchase cost is $142,220, and the RAP budget entirely funds this purchase. Marysville School District will hold the title for the vans just as they do for RAP's current pickup truck. All costs relating to the purchase, fuel, maintenance, and any associated expenses of the vans and pickup are the responsibility of the RAP budget. And this request has undergone review and received approval from the Financial Oversight Committee. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase and maintenance of 2 8-passenger vans to be purchased and maintained solely with funds from the RAP budget.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to confirm this, there are no changes from what we reviewed at the last meeting. This is exact same thing.
Correct.
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty in-depth last meeting, and actually the next 5 items as well. We covered it pretty much in depth, so should go pretty quickly.
All right, if there's no further comments, or did you have something? You're just getting ready to say aye or nay? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, next up, Cascade Elementary School RTU replacement presented by Greg Dennis, Director of Safety, Security, and Facilities.
Good evening, board. I presented at the last board meeting on this topic, background information, purchase and installation of a new replacement HVAC rooftop unit from Hermanson Company LLP under the KCDA contract at the total cost of $217,533.15. No change from my last presentation. And I'm here to recommend project approval to Hermanson Company LLP using KCDA contract number 23270 in the amount of $217,533.15 for the replacement of rooftop heating unit at Cascade Elementary.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase order to Hermanson Company LLP for the replacement of the Cascade Elementary rooftop heating unit.
I second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? We appreciate you going in depth in this last meeting. It gives us an opportunity to have at least a full week or 2 or sometimes a month to go through the information and seek clarifying questions and answers.
Yeah.
So really appreciate it. There's no further comments or questions from the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, motion passes. Next one for you, Greg, Sunnyside Elementary boiler replacement.
Yes, so the background information is the boiler's at end of life. We need to replace it using the KCDA contract in Hermanson Company, $436,578.20. No change to the previous presentation. And we're here to recommend project approval to Hermanson Company LLP using KCDA contract number 23270 in the amount of $436,578.20 for the replacement of the boiler at Sunnyside Elementary.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase order to Hermanson Company LLP for the replacement of the Sunnyside Elementary boiler.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion passes. Thank you very much. On to the next, number 6, purchase and installation of new cameras at MPHS and Cedar Crest Middle School.
Yeah, so the background information on this one, as you just stated, purchase of new cameras at Cedar Crest and MP to fill some of the voids we left when we did our initial implementation of security cameras. Total cost $135,260.52 to Absco Solution. I'm here to recommend project approval to Absco Solution in the amount of $135,260.52 for the addition of security cameras at Cedar Crest Middle School and Marysville-Pilchuck High School.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase order to Absco Solutions for the acquisition of additional cameras at Cedar Crest Middle School and Marysville-Pilchuck High School.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion?
I didn't hear you say it this time. This is exact the same thing we looked at.
This is the exact same numbers that presented last time.
Anything else from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
I
Motion passes. Next up, NWESD Threat Assessment Interlocal Agreement, presented by Greg Dennis.
Had my papers out of order. So as presented last time, this is an annual agreement, Northwest ESD 189 for threat assessment services in the amount of $15,375 and is calculated based on student FTE. This is the same number that was presented at the last board meeting. And I'm here to recommend approval of the interlocal agreement with Northwest ESD 189 to continue to provide support to the district for the 25-26 school year as it relates to threat assessment services.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the 1-year interlocal agreement with the Northwest Educational Service District 189 to continue support in the area of threat assessment services.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. One more for you, Greg. Number 8, Safety Resource Officer or SRO agreement with the City of Marysville.
Yeah, so the background information on this, again, I want to give a shout out to the City of Marysville on this. We typically pay for 1.5 FTE of the 2 FTE that we have assigned to us. Because of our financial situation, City of Marysville has graciously agreed to the buy one, get one free model. We fund 1 FTE, they fund 1 FTE. Total cost for the year is $138,340. And I'm here to recommend approval of the interlocal agreement with the City of Marysville to provide 2 school resource officers to the district for the 25-26 school year.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the 1-year interlocal agreement with the City of Marysville to provide 2 SROs to the district for the 2025-2026 school year.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to say I really appreciate, and I know you just mentioned it and it was mentioned before, but I really appreciate the City of Marysville stepping up and covering that extra 0.5 FTE. I know that, you know, that's not going to be permanent and we're going to have to look forward to it when we're in a better financial situation. I mean, we're going to look, as we look forward, we're going to have to plan on paying that as we're in a better financial situation. But I think that's a really gracious act on their part.
Yeah, I agree. And another example of the community stepping up when we need it. So yeah, thanks for that. Anything else from the board?
I guess I just have a comment that I feel like that the partnership is very appreciated, and I think that it's a benefit to all of us, to the district, to Marysville, to build those relationships and have the SROs in our schools. So I think that it is the right thing to do to step up and help the school district with an SRO. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Any other discussion from the board? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Next up, number 9, resolution number 2025-06, interfund loan from Capital Projects Fund to General Fund, presented by Dan Pullman, Interim Executive Director of Finance and Operations. Hello again, Dan.
Yeah, this is an interfund loan from the Capital Projects General Fund in the amount of $2,725,000 at a interest rate of 4.39% roughly. We'll talk about that in a second, to be repaid by August 31st of 2025.
Right, do you have a motion for this resolution?
I move to adopt resolution number 2025-06, authorizing the superintendent or designee to execute an interfund loan from the Capital Projects Fund to the General Fund up to the amount of $2,725,000 to temporarily meet the cash flow needs no later than June 25th, 2025. The loan value shall bear interest at the rate of 4.391663% per annum and shall be repaid from the general fund's unrestricted fund balance, including interest on or before August 31st, 2025.
I second that motion.
All right, motion and a second. Discussion?
So this is due August 31st, in addition to the 3.5 that we have already taken. So that, by my calculations, about 6.2 million. Are we going to have enough balance to repay?
Yes. Good. Yeah, as I had mentioned earlier, we get 25% of our revenue between July and August each year. So they backload. It's a new fiscal year for the state starting in July. So they give you a large percentage of your funding in those 2 particular months. So that's why you see fund balance will typically jump in July and August for most school districts across the state, because you've already expended most of your funds and then you get the revenue at the end.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have sort of been concerned, I have been concerned that this event would come up, that we weren't, that our projections with regard to our cash flow were at risk. And I just like to say that when we go forward to next year, the 2025-26 school year, we make sure we have if we're going to have to do a loan at all, that we do both a best case and a worst case scenario, so that we know when we're signing up at the beginning that we may have to authorize additional loans from the capital funds and what those might be. And I appreciate that we're trying to make this very short term, because I think legally we're required to pay it back within 12 months. And the intention here is that we're going to pay it back within 2. But it's still, we are still borrowing from the capital fund to pay this. So it is of concern to make sure that we are in fact going to repay it. But I do have an additional question. Do we have a projection at this point as to when we're going to pay back the 3 million something, that 3.5 million that we borrowed earlier?
Yes, the projection is to repay all of that by August 31st of 2025.
Okay, so
into this fiscal year,
so we're not
capital project should be restored.
Okay, so we're not, like last year, we weren't able to pay it back until November because we had to wait for the October receipts to have that money. But this year we think we'll be able to pay it all back by,
We believe we can.
on the end of August. Okay. Please keep us updated on that.
Sure. Yeah, it's been pretty consistent looking for the last several months.
Thank you. Anything else from the board? Right, all those
Do you want to ask your question about interest? I think you should.
Okay, we've been having a conversation about the interest. Curious what the amount is, but I know that there was legislation passed that would give districts the opportunity to borrow interest-free from the capital fund. I think as we have kind of worked this out together, we might miss that opportunity, unfortunately, just because of where we're needing to borrow these funds.
That is correct. Senate Bill 5412, which allows school districts in bonding conditions or under enhanced oversight to borrow money from the capital project fund with no interest. But it's effective July 27th of 2025, which is a month after we do this. My hope, though, is that OSBI has the responsibility to develop the rules around this. My wondering is, what if you had borrowed the money but repaid it after July 27th? Would you have to pay interest? I think it's a question we might ask TJ.
Because that's an excellent wondering. And we didn't ask this, but my assumption is whenever any of these types of things come before the board, obviously the FOC has looked at it and then has approved this action as well. So.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions from the board?
But I would also just point out that if we're only borrowing the money for 2 months at a 4% interest rate, that's 1/6 of a year. So it's going to be considerably less than 1% interest. I mean, it's difficult to pay interest at all, but we're not paying a huge amount.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks, Dan. All right, that's going to conclude our action items. We're going to move into follow-up items here, work study dates, board meeting dates, upcoming events. Next, work study regular session meetings on June 2nd, 2025. And then shortly after that, we have graduations. The 5th and the 6th. 5th, I think, at Tulalip. What building is that at? That's the 5th, right? For Heritage. And then the other 3 on the 6th. Gathering Hall. All right, superintendent comments.
No additional comments.
Thank you very much. We're going to move to board comments. Start with you. Start on this side.
I would like to say that I really appreciated today's recognition of staff. I'm always pleased when there are 2 particular parts of high school I very much enjoyed, and they were science and drama. And seeing those two getting recognized was really meaningful to me, and I really appreciated that. And I appreciate everything science teachers do, and drama is just fun. So, and then I also very much appreciated the multi-language learner update. I see that that's an annual report. It would be nice to hear how those things are going more than annually, but I recognize there's a lot of demands on the folks that are doing that effort, but it would be nice for that to be a briefed more often to the board as to how we're doing on that and how our students in that category are doing. But
very much.
Great. Just like to second Director Thomas's comments and wish good luck to all our student athletes that are still competing in districts and at state. Last time for a lot of these students representing us. So good luck to them. And really kind of bummed that we didn't have any student performance tonight. That's kind of going to be the only reason I show up is to see the performances. So maybe we can work on that for next one. That's all.
Scheduling conflict. Sorry about that.
We should have asked for an impromptu drama performance.
And there's like 5 drama kids here.
Well, I would echo what you both just said. It was great to see the staff recognition and hear about the tutoring program. And obviously I've heard a lot about the greenhouse project, haven't had a chance to see it. So it's great to see the person behind it get recognized. And just want to thank staff. for all the hard work, and there's a lot of hard work that's happening. Certainly just regular end of the year things, but as we move through the school consolidation and all of the transitions and just all of the work that's happening there, I just want to make sure that we recognize that because I'm sure it is not easy. And then wanted to echo something that Eliza said post our meeting with the auditor. And I think it's a goal of the board is that continued focus, not only on financial stability, but working through our processes and our systems to make sure that they're functioning well on behalf of the district. And I know we've handed, again, we appreciate all the work that you're doing and we've handed you a lot there as well. But you know, as we move forward, continuing to really work on those systems and processes kind of throughout the district to make sure that we're doing what we need to do, I think will be helpful. So thank you for that.
Haslachil, good evening, everybody. I agree. It's overdue after going through so much leadership change in this district over these past 5 years. I can see why internal controls have kind of gone by the wayside and we get those findings. And I have every confidence that Dr. Rumbaugh is going to address those in collaboration with the staff that she has here. And I just look forward to knowing that we're moving on a path to making sure that we don't have those types of findings in the future. I also want to acknowledge that we received an update about 2 of our schools that received state recognition from the State Board of Education, the Educational Opportunity Gap Oversight and Accountability Committee, and the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction identified schools statewide to receive this recognition for the 23-24 school year. And we had 2 schools, Marysville Pilchuck High School and Cascade, that are being recognized for improvement in 1 or more of the 3 areas, closing gaps, recognized for significant progress in areas needing improvement, such as assessment scores, English learner progress, or graduation rates, growth, schools with at least 1 student group making one of the state's largest annual gains in performance measures like attendance, assessments, or graduation rates. Achievement, these schools have the state's highest performance in at least 2 key areas, including attendance, dual credit completion, assessment scores in English language arts or math, graduation rates or 9th grade credit attainment, and are above average across all reportable student groups on the 2025 Washington School Improvement Framework. But I just wanted to take time to say that here on the record because these teachers and these staff work and these students work really hard. And I think it's important that we acknowledge all those accolades that our school district are also receiving. So congratulations to those schools and the staff and the students that have received this recognition. And thank you all for sticking it out with this. This was a long agenda.
Thank you very much. Got any closing remarks? Thank you.
You're a senior, right? So is this your last meeting with us or one more?
June 2nd. June 2nd. Yeah. True. Happy birthday. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
Mhm. All right. On Friday, I sent a letter of resignation to my fellow board members as well as Dr. Rumbaugh. And so I'll read it to the public during this meeting. And I don't know why I'm so nervous. I speak to all of you all the time, and but I'm real nervous to read this letter, but I'll read it. Dear fellow board members and Superintendent Rumbaugh, it is with a full heart and a deep sense of responsibility that I submit my resignation from the Marysville School Board effective June 7th, 2025. This decision comes after much reflection and is prompted by my recent application, interview, and offer for a staff position within the Marysville School District. To honor the integrity of our governance and to avoid any potential conflicts of interest, I must step away from my role as a board member. Serving the Marysville and Tulalip community as a school board member and board president for the last 3.5 years has been a great honor. During my time on the board, we faced challenges that most boards never anticipate. There was COVID, difficult budget decisions, district-wide restructuring, and a host of leadership transitions. Despite these trials, or perhaps because of them, I've come to admire the incredible resilience, commitment, and passion that our educators, staff, students, and families bring to this district every day. The decisions we've made as a board have not always been easy, but they have always been rooted in what we believed was best for the students of Marysville and Tulalip. I'm incredibly proud of the direction this district is headed, greater stability, renewed community engagement, and a dedicated focus on academic achievement and student well-being. To my fellow board members, thank you for your partnership, your courage, and your unwavering dedication to doing what is right, even when it's hard. To the district leadership and staff, thank you for your tireless work and for helping bring our shared vision to life. And to the families and students of Marysville and Tulalip, thank you for your trust, your patience, and your continued engagement in shaping the future of our schools. I will always be grateful for the opportunity to serve this incredible community, and the Marysville School District will continue to thrive because of the people who care deeply and lead boldly. And it is with sincere gratitude and respect, Connor Krebs, President, Marysville School Board. So this will go into effect June 7th. That's the day after graduation. And after June 7th, our board, absent of me, will start our 90-day vacancy protocols. So they'll go out to the community and try to fill that seat. So thank you to our current board, Dr. Rumbaugh, and just for all the different challenges that we've gone through as a board. You know, I attribute my white eyebrow to the Marysville School District. I don't know if that's the root cause, but it's been tough, but it's been very rewarding. I've grown a lot as a person, and my knowledge of K through 12 public school has grown significantly in ways that I would have never imagined absent being a board of director. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for the opportunity. But this isn't the last of me serving the community or the district. I'll just be serving in a different capacity. So thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned, 7:55.
Better
Thank you
use
very
that
much.
gavel once.
I got one more meeting. All right, thank you very much.